Hello, Fiona here, and today we will be looking at relational wounds, relational trauma, relationship PTSD. So, those are the terms that are used, I guess, interchangeably. And this is coming from the session that we had a few weeks ago for Finding Me, the third session. And this happened to be the common thread that came up during that session. And I wanted to do a video that would give a summary of what relational wounds are, how we end up getting them, and how we can better manage them, so that it wasn't for the benefit of just those who attended, but like everybody who will get to watch this video. Yeah. And so we will get into it. Relational wounds are the after effects of being in a close relationship with someone, and they either subject you to abuse, neglect, abandonment, or enmeshment. And abuse is, causing harm to another person. Neglect is withholding or not doing the thing that that you are supposed to be doing. So if you are taking care of a child, for example, the material needs of the child are they need clothing, they need food. So if you're not attending to their needs in that way, then you're neglecting them, right? If you're not attending to their emotional needs, like when they're having a difficult time processing something and you're not supporting them, then you're neglecting them. Abandonment is also similar to neglect. And abandonment can occur because of many reasons. So it's not necessarily that someone must leave the home, that they can also abandon you as a result of an overly busy work schedule. They can abandon you because of substance use or substance abuse. They can abandon you because they're dealing with domestic violence, maybe with their other partner. They can abandon you because they're just feeling completely overwhelmed with the needs of the child, and maybe they have their own mental health issues, and so they're not able to attend to the needs of the child. And then enmeshment is when a caregiver turns to a child to meet their own emotional needs. So it's like turning you into one of their friends, and they don't know how to maintain boundaries with you. So they'll tell you stories that you don't really need to be knowing. They will drag you to places you don't really need to be going. Another form of enmeshment is when they are over involved in your life. So you're not able to make a decision for yourself because whatever the caregiver thinks is right is what you should also think is right. Whatever decision they have arrived at is the decision they want you to arrive at. So that's some of the ways that people end up getting relational wounds. You'll find that a lot of feelings will come up in these instances, feelings like betrayal, anger, frustration, like just being mad, and in order to like better understand how these relational wounds affect us, then you can be able to see, like, if you are growing up in a home where you were being abused by one of your caregivers, whether it's emotional abuse or psychological abuse, then that can really impact how you treat other people in your adult life, or how you interact with people in your adult life. It's going to be very challenging for you to be able to trust people. If you have been enmeshed, then it's very difficult for you to hold space for people and what's going on for them, because it kind of feels like you keep being burdened with other people's issues and you don't really want to keep taking them on. If you've been abandoned, then maybe you would not want to get into a relationship with anyone because you feel like, what's the point if they're just going to leave me, if they're not going to pay attention to me, if yeah. So like, you can see how it will impact how you relate with other people. Another way that it impacts us when we have been subjected to abuse, neglect, or all these other kinds of relational wounds, is that it warps our self-concept. So it really starts to mess up with our own understanding of ourselves, because it's like, okay, maybe I'm the kind of person who just deserves to be neglected, or I'm the kind of person who deserves this type of abuse, you then start to see yourself through the eyes of the person who is victimizing you, or is acting in a way that is victimizing you, because they might not be intentional in the way that they are behaving. Um, and so you as the individual start to feel for yourself the way that person is treating you, which is not true, right? Like, no one is deserving of abuse, nobody is deserving of being neglected. But because of having been subjected to that environment and to that treatment, especially it's for a long time, then you start to see yourself in that way that is a bit upside down. Now, this relational wounds can happen in a relationship with our caregivers or our parents. It can happen in our relationship with our siblings. It can happen in our relationships with our peers, our friends, our colleagues at work, our bosses, right? So it's as long as you are in a relationship and then now one of these four things starts to happen within that relationship or happens in that relationship, then you will end up having that relational wound or experiencing a relational wound or a relational trauma. I hope all of that makes sense. Now, the effects of these relational wounds or this relational trauma is that we have difficulties with our self-esteem, which I had already mentioned, that because you end up getting such a warped view of yourself that now you have no reason to have esteem for yourself, to have regard for yourself. You have no confidence in yourself because you have been viewing yourself based on what has happened to you and not who you are. Then you also have problems with setting and maintaining boundaries, because if you have been unable in the past to speak up for yourself, and be able to say, no, I don't want this, or I don't want to go there, if you do and you're punished, then it's like, okay, I'm not going to be doing it. Yeah, you just stop doing it because you don't want to be punished, especially when you're under the authority of your caregivers. You realize that the quality of your life is determined by what works and what doesn't for them. Yet, for you, there might be things that are working for them but are not working for you, yet you can't speak up because it doesn't work for them. And therefore, if it doesn't work for them, then it's too bad for you. You're the one to figure yourself out, not them to accommodate the differences that you have. So now that's how you end up accumulating this trauma from relationships, because it's like anytime you had a need, you were unable to communicate it. Anytime you were feeling overwhelmed, you were unable to communicate it. And so when you grow up into adulthood, it becomes very challenging to be able to communicate your needs and to be able to also set boundaries and maintain them. You will also have difficulty in establishing healthy relationships, because then if you have been exposed to an environment of abuse for a long time, you don't have a model for a healthy relationship, right? The people you have been seeing in relationship and then the people who have been in relationship with you have been unhealthy and dysfunctional. So it becomes quite challenging once you've experienced this relational trauma. If you're unconscious of it, it becomes challenging to be able to build and maintain healthy relationships. It can also lead to social anxiety or generalized anxiety, which is that sense of anxiety that you get maybe like being around other people that you don't know. And you just like, oh my God, this undercurrent of unease flowing in your mind or in your body. It can also cause you to be avoidant, so not wanting to interact with people that you don't know, or even if you are interacting with them, you're very closed off, you're not as engaged as other people are, and if you have the opportunity, you would even just say no and not go at all. Then there's also people who would have difficulty in becoming independent as a result of relational trauma. And you can see how that would be the case, especially with enmeshment, because your caregiver didn't allow you the space to be autonomous, to be able to make your own decisions and determine for yourself what your life would look like. It becomes difficult now for you when you're an adult to be able to operate independently and make your own decisions and chart your own life for yourself because you didn't have the practice, you didn't have the support to do it earlier. So where do you get the knowledge and the capacity to be able to do it in adulthood? It becomes quite a challenge. And then another effect that people will experience as a result of relationship trauma is that they either become quite manipulative in relationships. If someone was manipulative towards you, you know that's how things go. You know, that's the way it goes. That me, I will pretend that I am unwell so that I can get attention or I can get pity, or I will guilt trip you into wanting to participate in an activity with me. You'll find that because of the dynamics that you were exposed to that caused you that relational trauma, you then end up repeating the same patterns in the relationships that you will be forming later in life. You could also find a sense of like overly neediness. It's the same thing. It's like I haven't been able to be alone and think by my own for a long time, so I'm not gonna do it now. You'll be the person calling all your friends, imagining that they should be spending all their free time with you. And it's like, no, people can be able to have free time where they're not engaging with anyone, including yourself. But there was no room for that to happen. Or maybe the fact that you were neglected. It's like, I didn't have people in my childhood or when I was growing up, so now I want to fill every minute of my day doing something with someone because I don't want to go back to those difficult feelings that I was experiencing at the time of being neglected. So those are just some of the effects that you'll find that people will experience as a result of relational trauma. And so now I'll move on to how do you manage? How do you work through or heal this trauma? And I would want to give like a disclaimer here to say that even if you're doing the work to heal relational trauma, it doesn't mean that it will all go away, that you'll never be triggered ever, that if you had faced abuse at some point in your life, that a point will come in your life where it's just butterflies and birds and rainbows. You know, like healing is not necessarily that you will never be triggered. It's just about being able to manage the charge that arises within you whenever a situation presents itself that is a bit similar to something that happened in the past. So, because that's what triggers are. It's like something happened in the present that is creating some sort of charge or impulse within you that is a strong reminder of a previous experience that had taken place in the past. So, in order to be able to work through your relational trauma, one of the things you need to be able to do is identify those triggers. If you have faced abuse, what kind of abuse was it? Was it emotional abuse? Then that means what people say to you is going to be something that you're on high alert about. You don't want people like using sarcasm because it has a bite, right? So you'll be quite sensitive to sarcasm. Whereas someone else who didn't face emotional abuse, like in their family, maybe they use sarcasm to joke with each other. So you don't want for you to not have a clear picture of what those triggers are, because if you don't, then now you'll just be lipukaing at everything and everyone, which then is the effect of the relationship trauma. So you having no idea or having no insight into the things that trigger you is doing yourself an injustice or disjustice by the fact that you're not able to then know at what point to like engage the gear for, okay, I need to take a breath, I need to be able to better communicate what's going on here. And that's now the second step. So after being able to identify your triggers, you want to be able to communicate what's going on for you. So going with the example I had given, it's like, oh, you know, whenever you use sarcasm when we're talking, to me it kind of feels like an insult. And it's because, when I was growing up, my mom or my dad or my brother would do this, and it was really hurtful, and I couldn't like speak up for myself. So for me, I would really appreciate it if we didn't include like offensive, sarcastic remarks when we're speaking with each other, right? So you're not like looking to blame them, you're not looking to shame them, you're just saying that this is something that bothers you, and this is how we can go about it in a better way to maintain a healthy relationship. Another thing you would want to look into is health promoting emotional outlets. So emotional outlets include something like journaling or creative activities. So you could like choose to do drawing or painting. It could be movement. Dance is also quite good as an emotional outlet, just as long as it is a health promoting outlet. Because punching someone in the face is also an emotional outlet, but it's not something you want to do if you are trying to heal from your relationship trauma. You would, in fact, be causing someone else relational trauma. Okay? And then finally, of course, I would recommend that if you're looking to work through this, that therapy is very helpful because you're able to talk to a non-biased, objective third party about what's been going on for you in your life and in relationship to other people. They can give you, they can help you to develop better insight into what those triggers are, and then help you with the framework for communicating better and looking for health promoting emotional outlets. So yeah, I hope that with this video there's been a bit of clarity around what relational wounds are and how you can manage them better. When the session came to an end, at the one that we had for Finding Me, I encouraged people to sort of reflect and come up with their own system for dealing with what they had gone through in the relationships that they were speaking about on that particular day. So someone shared about a friend, someone shared about a mother, someone shared about colleagues. So it's like, okay, what system would you want to develop for yourself to be following through with when you're dealing with those moments of having been betrayed, for example, someone you were expecting to support you didn't support you, someone who is overstepping a boundary, someone who is imposing their way of thinking on you, right? So how would you want to go about it? Because by reflecting on it, it already makes like a track in your mind, so that now when the situation arises, you're able to go and follow that track in your mind that you had created. So I would also encourage you who's watching here that if you have experienced or are experiencing some form of relational trauma or wounding, that you can develop this system for yourself where you can be able to help yourself advocate for yourself better in those situations. Because if they are completely avoidable to begin with, that would be the best thing. That means you're able to set boundaries well. But if you're in that situation, then now developing that system for how you'd communicate for yourself or advocate for yourself better and what outlets you can use would be something worth considering. Alright then, so with that I shall leave you, and until the next video, ciao!